What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Going for Two Cover Zero IDP podcast. I am Jerry, along with my co-host Hasan. We are without Jordan today, but we're going to be able to take care of this Week 4 Going for Two podcast without him. Let's get right into it. Our Twitter, make sure you follow our Twitter. It's listed right down below, Cover Zero GF2. And then obviously we got mine and Hasan's personal Twitters if you want to follow us. Those are listed right below us as well. Let's get into the news and injuries that happened between Week 3 and Week 4. A couple cool things. They have the AFC and NFC Defensive Player of the Months and the Defensive Rookie of the Month. So the AFC Defensive Player of the Month is Melvin Ingram of the Miami Dolphins. NFC Defensive Player of the Month is Devin White of the Tampa Bay Bucks. And NFL Defensive Rookie of the Month is linebacker Devin Lloyd of the Jaguars. So pretty cool to see a couple of those guys on there. All linebackers, just racking up tackles, getting to the quarterback. So pretty fun. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the last time we see either of these guys' names. Ingram been around for a while, Devin White a while, Devin Lloyd making himself at home right down there in Jacksonville. We got this week starts the international series. The Vikings at the Saints. The Saints are technically the home team in that one from London. That's going to be 9:30 Eastern Sunday morning. So for a guy like myself that works all day, it's pretty cool to have football an hour and a half into my shift, and it just runs all day long then. So I don't have to wait until 1 o'clock for the first game. Get to watch it early in the morning. Bills went out and signed defensive back Xavier Rhodes to a one-year deal with all the injuries that they've been having. Unfortunately, he is going to be out this week with a hamstring injury. But I don't think the plan was to have him ready for this week anyways. He played with the Colts. He reunites with Leslie Frazier from the Minnesota days. He's got 453 career tackles, 13 career interceptions, and 5 of them came in 2016, all with the Vikings. Chargers defensive lineman edge rusher Joey Bosa has been placed in IR with a groin injury, and Ravens defensive lineman Michael Pierce torn biceps. And I forgot to get the update on what he decided to do. Do you have that off the top of your head, Hasan? Is he playing or did he get the surgery?
I do not actually. I do not.
That's fine. I mean,
find it just at the end of the show, though, definitely.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, it's torn biceps right in the middle of the line. You're dealing with the biggest beef up front. So
yeah, he's scheduled for season-ending surgery on Thursday. Today. Yep.
So looks like he's going to be out for the rest of the year. I'm going to have to go in and replace your defensive tackle, another defensive lineman if you got him on your roster. But hold on to him because he should be back strong next year. Getting into the Week 4 outs, doubtfuls, and questionables. So far out is going to be Marcus May, Jordan Phillips, Christian Benford. I throw him on there because he was a guy that a lot of people have picked up with all the defensive back injuries to Buffalo. Zach Cunningham, Amani Hooker, Julian Blackman, Jalen Johnson, Leonard Williams, Quincy Williams, and Akeem Hicks. Again, those guys are all out this week. Doubtful is going to be Andrew Booth and Justin Houston. Those are the two doubtfuls I found. And then questionable, still up in the air. Monitor it Sunday morning. Obviously, Zadarius Smith, Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett. Now that's a crazy one too. We didn't talk about him in the news, but he rolled his Porsche a couple times, was in the hospital, I believe it was Monday, already released, and he's questionable to play. So that guy's made of titanium. Ed Oliver, Dane Jackson, Jordan Poyer, DeForest Buckner, Shaq Leonard, still waiting on his debut for the Colts, or his debut as his name Shaq. He's been with the Colts obviously before, but waiting on his debut as that name. Robert Quinn, Chiason, Shaquille Griffin, J.J. Watt, Zaven Collins, Jalen Mills, Kyle Duggar, and Adrian Phillips. So those are all the questionables. Good chance that they play. I don't believe Dane Jackson is playing this week. Again, Myles Garrett, going to have to monitor him. He was just in that car accident on Monday. But everybody else, keep an eye on, see if they're playing. If not, you're going to have to find some pivots because those are, for the most part, guys that are in a lot of people's starting lineups. So definitely keep an eye on that. And without further ado, we'll get into the Thursday night recap where the Bengals defeated the Dolphins 27-15.
All right. Yeah. Just as Jerry said last night, the Bengals beat the Miami Dolphins 27-15. As most of you probably know, Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, suffered a concussion and left basically right about, I would say, midway through the second quarter. And then Teddy Bridgewater came in and he kept it a game for most of the game, but his pick with his interception with about 4 minutes left kind of sealed it. Set Cincinnati up right inside the red zone where they scored very easily within the next couple plays. So as far as IDP players go for that, Jerome Baker, he led the Dolphins with 7 tackles total. 5 of those were solo. Obviously, the solos are going to get you the most points, so that's the guys you want to look for. Jalen Phillips. Joe Burrow was, after being sacked 13 times in the last 2 weeks, has only been sacked now 2 times in the last 2 weeks. So that much maligned $70 million brand new offensive line that Cincinnati paid for, it didn't play well, and everyone knew that the first 2 games. It has been playing better. The pressures are still getting there, but the sacks are not getting there as they will. And when you basically are replacing a whole entire offensive line, it's going to take time. And we get overreactions all the time. So cornerback Nick Needham of the Dolphins, he had the only pass defense in the whole game. Kader Kohu, the cornerback for Miami, he led the way with solo tackles with 6, just right above Baker. Xavier Howard, Cincinnati knew he was injured last night coming in, so they attacked at him hard, and he was in shadow coverage, covering Jamar Chase a little bit, but then he was also covering T. Higgins a little bit as well. And as soon as he was on T. Higgins, they were just picking on him. And then eventually his groin injury, he re-aggravated it, he left with it, just had 1 solo tackle and 1 assisted. Christian Wilkins, who is a big name defensive tackle, he had 1 solo and 4 assisted. Safety Javon Holland, he had 2 solo and 3 assisted for 5 total tackles. The Dolphins' defensive front as a whole, Joe Mixon got the ball 24 times, but only had 61 yards on those 24 runs. So that's 2.5 yards per attempt. And, with 24, to not even crack 65 yards with 24 rushes, that defense was playing very well up front. Linebacker Jermaine Pratt led the Bengals in total tackles with 6 solo and 3 assisted. And then Jesse Bates had a solo tackle and 1 pass defense for Cincy side. And then defensive tackle BJ Hill had 5 assisted tackles and 1 pass defense on his side. And that's going to be it for IDP players so far as it comes at the end for Thursday Night Football. And Cincinnati is now won 2 in a row to improve to 2-2. Miami loses its first game 3-1, and we will see how long they are without Tua for, if they are without Tua for at all, since they do have 10 days off before their next game.
All right, yeah, good breakdown of the Thursday night game. Only thing that I would probably add is Von Bell had the 2 interceptions. You mentioned that Tua. You mentioned that Bridgewater threw the 1 at the end of the game, but he actually had 2 interceptions. He picked off Tua earlier in the game. But yeah, overall, I mean, a lot of the guys that you probably started from this game, they you got some good points out of them. A few with a handful of tackles, couple pass deflections. Not many sacks in this game. I think each quarterback was only sacked once. Each starting quarterback, because I don't think Bridgewater went down at all. I think Tua had 1 sack on him, Burrow had 1 sack on him, So not many sacks, but you did get a couple interceptions from Von Bell, a handful of tackles from Bates, from Hill, from Baker, from not Phillips, Christian Wilkins. So overall, good IDP game for a lot of the stars. Xavier Howard was really the only one that kind of disappointed, but he did get hurt. He was kind of banged up last week too, but he ended up playing. He had a really good game last week. This week still was questionable throughout the week. Ended up playing again, but he ended up leaving hurt. So that's really the only guy that hurt you from the defensive back position. Getting into our weekly twos. This is something that we do every week. We give you 2 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 2 defensive backs each. So normally it's 18 when we have the 3 of us. Today it'll only be 12 because there's just the 2 of us. We did not get Jordan's notes. Again, like I said, he's having some technical difficulties. He's been without power all day, so he's been trying to conserve his phone and laptop power, so he wasn't able to throw his notes in here. But let's get into our weekly twos. We'll do this roundtable style. Basically, I'll just go, then you go, back and forth, and we'll get these 12 out of the way. Our first one is I got defensive lineman Dorrance Armstrong, edge rusher from Dallas. He's been seeing about 51% of the defensive snaps and is listed as a starting edge rusher opposite DeMarcus Lawrence on that defensive line for Dallas. I want pieces of this front 7 in my IDP leagues, whether it be streaming them or throwing them into my lineup. Because Wentz, he's been a sack machine so far. He was sacked 9 times last week against Philadelphia, sacked 15 times overall this season, and that's even with the extra game that Joe Burrow played. That's only 2 behind Joe Burrow. And I mean, we've been going back and forth every podcast so far, just talking about we want pieces going up against Joe Burrow. I know in the weekly twos I've attacked going after Burrow. I think Wentz might be the guy to attack now. His line did not look good at all. Philly's defense is good. I mean, not to take anything away from them, but to get to quarterback 9 times and it's unheard of. So I think Armstrong and company could get another couple there. Dallas is also a sack machine. They got to the quarterback 13 times this season already. They were one of the teams that already played Cincinnati. I think they got Burrow for 6 in that game, 5 or 6 in that game. I forgot what it was.
7. It was 7 for the Cowboys in that game.
Okay, so 7 in that game. So a lot of their production did come from that game. But I mean, they're facing another weak offensive line, quarterback that really doesn't have the wheels that he used to. 3 of those sacks are courtesy of Dorrance Armstrong over the past 2 weeks too. He's got 3 sacks in the past 2 weeks. So, like I said, I got DeMarcus Lawrence ranked high on the defensive line rankings this week. But if Dorrance Armstrong is out there or I have him on one of my teams, I'm definitely going to be playing him.
All right. I have defensive lineman Josh Sweat of the Eagles. He's had 9 to 18 points in each week, with it going up from 9 to 12 to 18. He's had 1 sack in each of the last 2 games, 1 and 1.5 respectively in the last 2. He's had 2 or 3 quarterback hits in each game, 3 in the first 2 games, 2 in the last game. He's wreaking havoc in the trenches, and it's gone unnoticed due to the presence of bigger name guys such as Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, and basically they have, we're talking about Cox and Sweat having the same number of points through 3 weeks, yet everyone and their mother knows who Fletcher Cox is, and Josh Sweat is sitting on waivers right there for anyone to pick up. And Hargrave's been a very vast disappointment this year, and in terms of fantasy points, and he's outdone him by a lot. He's played roughly about 67% of snaps all year and still been able to do this. And he got it up to 71% last week, which does show that the snaps, although it's just 4%, did increase a little bit. So I hope that he continues to get snap count opportunities go up. And, if he's down there in the trenches just flying around, wreaking havoc, putting pressure on the QB left and right, no matter who he plays, he's going to be in there. For me, he's got an enticing matchup with the revenge game on the other side for Doug Peterson. But the Eagles' front seven is great, and Sweat is a big part of what makes them go. And again, not being a household name, he's out there to snag.
All right, I like that one. We've heard his name a couple times on this show already. He was either mentioned last week or the week before. Another one that was mentioned a week before, Travis Gibson. He's my next defensive lineman of the Bears. Again, I couldn't really necessarily attack Joe Burrow in that offensive line because they played on Thursday night. So I'm going with the next highly sacked quarterback, and that's Daniel Jones. He comes in at number 3. He's been sacked 13 times on the season. It's a little different for Daniel Jones for going into this week. He's not that anybody from the offensive line is really missing, so it wouldn't be. I mean, they're still not great, but he doesn't have those pass catchers really to help bail him out. I mean, he's going to be throwing the ball to either they try to get Kenny Galladay involved or Saquon out of the backfield, but they're going to be missing Sterling Shepard. He's done for the year. Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney have already been ruled out for this game. So he's really going to have a tough time. He's either going to have to make some moves with his feet, which he can do, or he's going to try to throw to some guys that are not. I mean, they're number 3, 4, and 5 on the depth chart as opposed to 1, 2, and 3. So it's going to be a little tough for him. Maybe Gibson could get to the quarterback a couple times, get a couple tackles, a couple sacks back there. Robert Quinn is also questionable for the Bears, so that could mean some extra snaps for Gibson on that defensive line.
All right. My second guy is defensive end Jerry Hughes, and I do know he is doubtful, and that did just pop up. But I'm still going to go with him because, every vet gets off on Wednesdays regardless. So I'm not too worried about him missing Wednesday practice. And Thursday, he was limited, but he was, he was still practicing, and then again just popped up today as doubtful. But if he plays, this is who I'm going with because he's still sitting out there for everyone to pick up. He already has 4 sacks through 3 games, 2 in weeks 1 and 3. He had 30 and 25 points in weeks 1 and 3, sandwiched around a 3-point game that I think is an outlier for him because this week he's facing an offensive line on the Chargers that's going to be without Rashawn Slater for the whole rest of the season, most likely again without Corey Linsley, who's an awesome center. Herbert's going to be playing banged up. Keenan Allen has just been said to sit out this week. Jalen Guyton just went down for the season. So they're decimated on offense and on the offensive line and the skill positions. And, Herbert is playing through injury, but you can obviously tell he doesn't look like himself. I feel like with Hughes being in the league for 13 years, this is going to be a very easy matchup with the decimated offensive line, and he can pick his spots, basically use his football IQ of 13 years, and then if you want to take it back to the NCAA where he was great for another 16 years, but maybe get to the quarterback once or twice for a sack, be in his face, 3 or 5 total times for QB hits plus sacks, and catch Eckler in the backfield once or twice since he has done that, since he has caught some running backs in the backfield this season.
I like it, and as a guy that used to watch him every Sunday, I like that pick a lot. My next, are getting into the linebackers, I got Jacob Phillips, linebacker for the Browns. We mentioned him last week because they played on Thursday night. Phillips saw an increased role last Thursday night after Anthony Walker went down, and he goes into this matchup. He's going to be wearing the green dot for the Browns in the middle of the offense, so a lot of responsibility there. Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett are both questionable. No, they're not the same position, but that's a couple of edge rushers that are possibly going to be out, if not banged up going into this game. Phillips could be in line for some QB pressures too. That's just a bonus. We're not really looking for QB pressures from him. We're looking more for the tackles by chasing down Marcus Mariota, Cordell Patterson out of the backfield. Maybe he gets a couple coverage snaps versus Kyle Pitts. But one way or another, he should be on the field 90 to 100% of the game for the defensive side of the ball for the Browns. He should have a huge game starting for the Browns, and it's going to be. It doesn't look that great all on paper, Browns versus Falcons, but I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, you got some offensive skill positions on Atlanta's side. You got right now one of the best running backs in the league on the Browns side, so it's going to be a fun game. And I'll be talking about another player from the same game in a little bit. But I got Jacob Phillips for the Browns.
All right, my first linebacker is going to be Frankie Louvu of the Panthers. He's had at least 12 points in each game, 20 in one game, 13 in the other, and then 12. And this is actually, I know it's been 3 weeks, but this is a stat that I was not thinking would be hold true after 3 weeks. He leads the team in tackles over Jeremy Chin and Shaq Thompson, which is, those are two big names for tackles and for IDP as well. Facing the Arizona team that's not been able to run the ball but is still attempting to, he's going to have a ton of opportunities there to get in the backfield, and he's already had 4 for tackle loss in one game against another weak offensive line in the Giants. So he should be all over that for a couple tackles for loss. And we know that Saquon Barkley is, and we know that James Conner is coming off of an injury as well. And so that's something to monitor. He's still playing while going through injury. So I feel like he's fully not back at game speed yet. You could kind of see that last week while watching the game. Kyler Murray, he's been throwing it short to Zach Ertz and Greg Dortch so far all season long, and that trend is going to continue regardless of the score because Kyler's always throwing short passes to his guys. So there's just more tackle opportunities right there, more opportunities for, swatting a pass down, something like that, forcing a fumble even. And for a guy who had 10 solo tackles against the same Giants I mentioned earlier, I feel like he could do very similar against this Arizona team as well.
All right. Remember when I said I was going to be going back to that Browns and Falcons game? Well, it's going to be right now, and you're going to know this guy. I got linebacker Rashaan Evans of the Falcons. I'm staying in the same game here. Evans is going up against the number 1 rushing offense in the league with that duo of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb he's playing like a 101 right now, playing like the top running back in the league.
Definitely.
Evans is coming off a 12 tackle performance and 2 pass deflections against Seattle last week, and he's going to be back out there trying to run down Nick Chubb, trying to run down Kareem Hunt, trying to run down the couple times that Jacoby Brissett might take off. He's been on the field for 95% of the time for the Falcons defensive snaps. In his career, he averages 6 tackles versus the Browns. He's played 2 games against them, both of them with Tennessee. And but I do expect that number to be a little bit higher. He's got a little bit more responsibility here in Atlanta. Atlanta's defense isn't as great as what it was in Tennessee the years that he was there. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, like I said, it's ugly on paper. You're scrolling through Sunday and you see Browns versus Falcons. Unless you're a fan of either of those teams, you're probably not tuning in. But there's definitely some power on both sides of the ball. With the Browns having so many injuries on defense, you might get some offense from Atlanta. So it could be a pretty good game. But I do like Rashaan Evans as an IDP in this one.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the Browns are injury report wise when it comes to defensive guys. They got 5 guys on there, and that's almost half their starters, and some of those guys are probably going to end up missing the game. So we'll see there with that. And yeah, as you said, Nick Chubb, has been playing great. And I think it's a cool early season matchup of Nick Chubb is number 1 in rushing in the whole league, and then Cordell Patterson is number 3 in rushing in the whole league. So I think that's a cool early season matchup to watch as well. My second linebacker is going to be Josie Jewell of the Broncos. So Jewell broke out in 2020 where he had 113 solo tackles and 46 assisted for 159 tackles in 16 games, which is just literally percentage points short of being 10 tackles a game exactly. He appeared in just 1.5 games last year, and he was all over the field again last year in the 1.5 games that he was able to play in. So, basically, he made his season debut against the Broncos last Sunday night. He was everywhere possible to be seen. 1 sack, 5 solo tackles, 4 assisted, 2 tackles for loss, 2 QB hits, and a fumble recovery. And the best sign is his first game in over a year, 95% of snaps. And he did that versus a good San Francisco line, who at the time, it did have one of the best it did have, in my opinion, the best left tackle in the league in Trent Williams playing. So I feel like Jewell, a couple seasons ago as well, people started picking him up off the waiver wire when he started performing this well. So I feel like that trend will continue after they see him doing what he's doing under a new regime. And obviously, it's going to be very hard to fill up all single one of those categories every single week. But there's no doubt in my mind that he can easily make 8 to 12 tackles on average weekly, and anything on top is just going to be icing on top of the cake. And, if you're getting, anywhere from 12 to 15 points out of a guy that you just stream, that's definitely worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, good way to go. I think you got him down around like 20, 22 range on the rankings this week, so definitely very high on him this week. Going to be interesting to see how he comes back this week. I got for my first defensive back Jaquan Johnson, safety for the Bills. Johnson stepped in, played very well for an injured Micah Hyde last week. This game has the highest over-under on the week at 51 points, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. So this is a game that I want to go and attack as much pass defenders as I can. I mean, ideally, if you play in offensive leagues, you want the guys Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis all to do their thing and get offensive points for you. And as far as like IDPs go, that doesn't hurt you in the points either. So like you can have them blow coverages and stuff like that, but you want the ball thrown all over the place in this game. Lamar leads the league in passing touchdowns. He's on an MVP pace right now. Josh Allen on the other side is also on an MVP pace. So you're looking at a lot of passing back and forth. I wanted to go with a guy that is being attacked by also Lamar Jackson could run too. And Lamar the past couple weeks has over 100 yards rushing, getting into the secondary. That's where Jaquan Johnson, Jordan Poyer, DeMar Hamlin are going to be hopefully running them down and making tackles back there. But it should be a good game as far as passing back and forth. I really didn't want to go with Kyer Elam. I was definitely looking at this secondary because I think that if in a perfect world, Josh Allen puts up a lot of points for the Bills and Baltimore has to try to play catch up. So definitely looking at Jaquan Johnson, Devin Duvernay. He's a deep shot guy, so looking to maybe get a couple passes that way, and maybe Jaquan could break him up or intercept one too.
All right. My first DB is going to be safety Richie Grant of the Falcons. So last year was his rookie season. He was a cornerback who only played 25% of snaps. So over the offseason, he converted to safety, and it's resulted so far in him playing 100% of snaps so far. And obviously, 25% to 100% is a big difference, but he's already got 23 combined tackles and at least 6 in each game so far versus just 65 combined tackles last year. So he should pass that number here in the next, 4 to 6 games here at max. He scored at least 9 to 19.2 points in each game. And I know 19.2 is a weird number, but he had 1 interception return for 12 yards. So you got to add the 1.2 for that. He had 18 in one game, 9 in one game, and the 19.2, as I mentioned, due to 10 tackle game, 1 QB hit, 1 pass defense week 1. And then he had a 6 solo tackle, 1 assisted with the interception return that I mentioned in week 3. His worst outing was still a solo tackle and 3 combo, which is still 9 points. And when you have 18 to 19 the other 2 weeks, I think you've got a pretty good stream for the week. And he's going against the Browns, and they're going to throw a lot of shadow coverage toward a guy like Amari Cooper, who should then open up for Cooper to be targeted a lot. And one way or another, Grant getting his hand in there, also along with helping A.J. Terrell on the assignment, an assisted tackle on a completion, a solo tackle whenever he's the only one in the vicinity. I think he can have 13 to 15 points. And again, a guy that's available everywhere. And just because, he plays for the Falcons, no one's going to look at him until we talk about him.
Yeah, and it's another interesting note, too, is we mentioned that the Browns are pretty much a run-heavy team, but Amari Cooper has back-to-back 100-yard games. First wide receiver to do that for the Browns since Josh Gordon back in 2013, I believe it was. So they're going to still be looking his way. And Njoku coming off that big game last Thursday. So, defensive backs, you don't necessarily have to tackle or just target just linebackers for the Falcons like I did with Rashaan Evans. You go to defensive backs because they're going to want to try to throw it to Njoku, Amari Cooper, Kareem Hunt out of the backfield. So going with the defensive back, Richie Grant, definitely a good choice there. My final defensive back, I tried this back in week 1. I'm going to try it again. Terrell Edmonds, safety for the Steelers. It kind of worked in week 1, except for it's just the wrong player. But Minka Fitzpatrick he's a cheat code. Can't really pick him. He's consistently ranked in the top 5, top 3, top 5. So yeah. I got to go the other way. I got to go with Minka. Or I got to go with Terrell. Zach Wilson is back. Joe Flacco goes back to the bench, and Wilson, he's not that good. We've seen it for the past year and a half or so. He's just not ready to really lead this team. But the Jets do have a lot of good pass catchers. Definitely guys that he's going to attempt to throw the ball to. Elijah Moore. Corey Davis, so you got Conklin coming out of the tight end slot, Michael Carter out of the backfield. And this could be one of the lower scoring games, so it is a bit of a risky pick here, but it is. I like Edmonds in this game. Get a couple tackles, maybe get his hand on a ball or two, maybe take one of those balls, pick him off. But Terrell Edmonds, I'm going to try to go back to it again against Zach Wilson this week.
All right, my second cornerback is going to be Desmond King of the Houston Texans. So he had 15 points week 1 on 76% of snaps with 5 solo tackles, 1 assisted, and 2 passes defended. It was strange because in week 2 he went down to 50% of snaps and only had 1 solo tackle and 1 combined. Still managed the 1 pass defense in his snaps. And then his snap percentage rose back up to 59% and saw him score 16 points on 7 solo tackles himself, again with a pass defense. So that is a pass defense in every single game and 4 on the season. So Lovie Smith basically knows he has a solo tackling machine who can do it on his own. He can knock down passes if need be whenever on the field. the Chargers, regardless of the injuries or not, they're going to throw the ball over the yard like they did last week with Herbert's 45 attempts. And that's going to give King a lot of opportunities for tackles, a lot of opportunities with Herbert hurt and not being as accurate. And you could see that the injury was ailing him when Herbert's going 57% versus his normal like 67% plus. So I could see some passes swatted down maybe. Well, I could see one definitely since he's had one in every single game. And, he does not have an interception on the year, but who knows? Justin Herbert, when fully healthy, struggled versus this same Texans defense without Lovie Smith, who, again, his calling card is defense. So he might be able to do even better. Who knows? And basically, James was able to do a lot of his damage against QBs and Matt Ryan and Justin Fields, who didn't even have a combined 50 attempts in those two games. And he was still able to get 12 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 3 passes defended, 1 tackle for loss on Jonathan Taylor, which is hard to do, along with the QB hit on Matt Ryan, which is proving not hard to do. But you want to be optimal level against QBs like that, and he was.
All right, so that's going to do it for the weekly twos. I got them scrolling across the screen right now. You got defensive lineman Dorrance Armstrong, Travis Gibson, Josh Sweat, Jerry Hughes, linebacker Jacob Phillips, Rashaan Evans, Frankie Louvu, and Josie Jewell, and defensive backs Jaquan Johnson, Terrell Edmonds, Richie Grant, and Desmond King. So I will keep that scrolling for you guys while we get into our final segment, the defensive special team streamers. I'll kick us off here, and I'm going with the Lions over the Seahawks. We're finally back to a week where there's more than a couple. Yeah. I was between a couple. There's more than a couple good streaming options. You could go anywhere in that Giants game. Obviously the Lions, you got a good stream or two. Dallas, if they're out there, they're probably not a streaming defense, but if Dallas is out there, they got a good matchup too. But
yeah, I have actually seen Dallas available in some leagues, and very weirdly, because the Browns did end up scoring 29 points against the Steelers defense last week. I saw a lot of people drop the Steelers defense this past week, which was very weird.
Yeah,
and I know too. And the Steelers defense is still defense number 7 at least through 4 weeks, and only has had 1 bad week on defense. And people just saw them give up 29 points. And we're just like, all right, never mind. Let me, they try to grab Cleveland or something for the streaming matchup that's coming up this week because it's against, the Falcons. So I did see that a lot this week as well.
Well, let me sign me up for the Steelers up against Zach Wilson. I'll take that one. But I got the Lions.
Me too.
The Lions are going up against the Seahawks. And it is a risky play because the Lions are giving up 31 points a game. They seem to be a funnel for points, but we can see it. We got a little bit of that Hard Knocks bias too, but if you've watched any of the 3 games, you can see the defense has the talent there. And against the Seahawks, we might actually see the full potential that they got. The offensive line for Seattle isn't the best. Aiden Hutchinson is kind of coming into his own. He had the 3 sacks in week 2. Maybe you could pick up a couple more against Geno Smith. Between the draft and free agency, throwing money at players, they've put together a decent defense on paper. And as the season goes on, you're going to see them playing a lot better and better. And matchups like this are definitely going to help. Philly, we already know they're one of the top offenses in the league too. So that was Detroit lost 38-35 in that game week 1. Maybe that's a little bit of an outlier. They looked a little bit better week 2, looked a little bit better week 3. They're still averaging the 31 points against per game, but we could definitely see that they are getting better. Cornerback Jeff Okudah is quickly becoming one of the best lockdown corners in the league. If he's on DK Metcalf, that could take away one of Geno's options. DK obviously has a size over many quarterbacks, so Geno gets a nice ball in there, throws it up, could come down with it. But we've seen Jeff Okudah shut down some pretty good wide receivers so far. And then that only basically leaves Tyler Lockett on the other side. Maybe shade some coverage over there to help him out, get you an interception or two on Geno, get a couple sacks in there. And then we also saw on Hard Knocks, Malcolm Rodriguez is fun to watch. The linebacker core is fun to watch. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be good for the Lions defense, and they are only $2,800 on DraftKings if you play DFS, so definitely going to be looking into that.
I really like that the Lions, their whole coaching staff is just ex-NFL players from basically the last 25 years. So they know what it's all about, basically. So they're going to get, talent level, if it's not there, it's not there. You can't control that. But they'll have those guys ready every Sunday, regardless. All right, so my defensive stream of the week is the Vikings. The Vikings have been much better defensively than in 2021 so far, with Danielle Hunter and Za'Darius Smith leading the pass rush from the edges. Safety Harrison Smith may be back in time if he does pass concussion protocol for Jameis Winston, who's still playing with a fractured back. And the Saints offense is banged up right now. They have a ton of guys playing, but playing through injuries. And some guys might miss the game. So we'll see what happens on that Sunday morning at 11 a.m. And the Saints offense has only scored 24 points the last 2 weeks, and 7 were when it didn't even matter, and they scored 26 week 1, so they haven't even been able to match that in the last 2 weeks with Winston's fractured back. So I think this is a cake matchup for the Vikings. They have vets that still play at a high level. They're playing against a team that's struggling offensively. And again, they're available all over the stream because everyone saw that Monday night performance versus the Eagles. But again, they turned the ball over so much when you put the defense in that kind of spot. The defense is automatically going to give up 3 anyway, so it's not really on them when it comes to that. So I'm taking the Vikings defense here because Jameis Winston has just been a pick machine with the fractured back, and I think he continues to do that. He fumbled 2 times last week. He didn't lose any of them, but that's always been another problem of his fumbling. So if he fumbles again, that's someone for the Vikings could pick that up, and that's 6 points for you right there on the fumble recovery. So I'm going with that.
All right. Yeah, that's a good I like that streamer a lot. We've talked about it in our group chat that the Vikings they have the potential to be a top defense. They're another team that does have a lot of new faces, so they are just kind of all coming together. As the season goes on, they're definitely going to be better. They're going to have some favorable matchups too, so it is going to be nice. So if you could grab them now and maybe hold on to them now, obviously you don't want to carry 2 defenses on your team, so you have to check the next couple weeks' schedule to see if it's worth it. But if you feel like they got the potential, which I do feel like they got the potential at fully healthy, they could be one of the top defenses in the league. One little side note I do want to mention, not that it matters too much, but Jameis has been ruled out. It is going to be Andy Dalton. But also Michael Thomas has been ruled out too. So you're taking away 2 guys from that Saints offense. So that even makes the Vikings defense that much better.
I will say that Michael Thomas being ruled out is huge because regardless of, I know Olave had a great week last week. You're still going to put your best corner on Michael Thomas no matter what. So that's just going to make it easier because they're not putting their best corner on Jarvis Landry, who's working out of the slot. So their best corner is going to go on Chris Olave, who is a rookie, and that's going to be a very tough matchup for him.
Yeah, and Landry's also dealing with something of his own. He's questionable. He's probably going to play.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying with all the ailments the Saints offense has. It's just, Kamara's just getting back, and it's just not a good time for the Saints offense right now at all.
No, so that kicks us off on Sunday morning wherever you are. I'm on the East Coast, so it's 9:30 for me. But that should be a good game. I mean, kicks off the international series. We got a couple international games coming up in the next couple weeks, but that's going to do it for the Cover Zero IDP show today. For Jerry, my co-host Hasan. If you like everything that you saw, check us out on YouTube at Going for Two. Check us out on Twitter. You got the Twitters listed right below us. The main Twitter that we use for Going for Two is Cover Zero GF2. Check that out if you want to see our weekly rankings. We rank the top 25 at each position, so you get 75 players ranked. We split them up between the three of us, so each of us gets a position group. So definitely check that out. And we will see you guys next week. I will not be here, but it'll be Hasan and Jordan running the show next week. So see you guys next Saturday night. Thank you.